Road to Thanos, Part 3. I'm super excited to dig into Captain America, Civil War, the Avengers' greatest defeat, before we get to the arrival of their greatest threat. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for Captain America, Civil War. Now, I did one not too long ago through the perspective of Black Panther, so this analysis is coming from another perspective, because this is part 3 in my Road to Thanos series. I've been having a blast digging into these Avengers movies, building the hype, and building into Avengers Infinity War just around the corner. I cannot believe it is almost here, and I'm super excited to get into that, man. So first we took a look at Loki and how Loki was trying to keep them from ever uniting. Then we got into Ultron, and his whole purpose was to hit them all at home so that they would stumble over their own feet as individuals, which would then cause them to trip over each other as a group so they'd be unable to stand. Now look, Loki, who's a god of mischief, he lost. And then you have Ultron, who is a super intelligent, super powerful robot dude, and he lost. And Zemo, who is a little turd, won. Like, seriously, by the end of this movie, the Avengers are divided. A house divided against itself cannot stand. They're divided at this point. How did this little turd beat out a god of mischief, and how did he beat out a huge intelligent robot? Well, let's dive into the vengeance of Zemo. Here's the thing with Zemo. What Zemo had to be concerned with was their strongholds. Now, a stronghold is that thing that can get in our lives and take ground and hold that ground. Sometimes it's just a little bit of fear. Sometimes it's just a little bit of unforgiveness. But whatever it is, it can start as something that's really little, like a teeny tiny addiction to something that seems harmless. And then that stronghold gets stronger and takes more and more ground in our lives. And it begins to distort our thoughts. It begins to distort the words out of our mouth. It really begins to take a hold of our lives, hence that term, a stronghold. So whether that be anger or bitterness or vengeance or fear or any kind of addiction, that would be a stronghold, that thing that gets inside, and then all of a sudden, before we even know what's happened, it's got the ground and it's holding that ground. So all Zemo has to do is take a look at the strongholds that are in the life of Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And once he knows what those strongholds are, once he knows that chord to strike, that's all he has to do. And all it has to be is something small. He doesn't have to be a supervillain. He doesn't even have to be that clever. He just has to know what their strongholds are to hit them at home. So let's dive into Tony Stark.
Captain, you seem a little defensive.
I firmly believe the stronghold in Tony Stark's life is fear. When we first meet Tony Stark in Iron Man 2, this is the dude who's standing in a courtroom and he's saying to all these judges and to all these people, he's like,
"Want my property? You can't have it. But I did you a big favor. I have successfully privatized world peace."
That dude was not going to hand over his sovereignty for anything. He wasn't going to hand over his creation. He wasn't going to hand over his plans, his suit. He wasn't going to give that over for anything. Period. Then the Avengers happens, and aliens enter the scene, and a root of fear gets in there. In Iron Man 3, it takes more ground, and he's so scared of losing Pepper. He's so scared of losing those that he loves the most and those that are closest to him, and he'll do anything to protect them. That fear grows even bigger once we get into Age of Ultron, and unknowingly he uncovers the Mind Stone and finds a way to finally create artificial intelligence, to finally create Ultron, this peacekeeping thing that he wants to create to be a suit of armor around the Earth to protect the world from an alien invasion. That's what this fear is. And the ironic thing is, when he created Ultron, he created his worst nightmare. He brought his worst fear into reality because he was acting out of fear. But because of that, we now get to Civil War, where this stronghold has now really taken solid ground in his life. That fear has taken such ground that he no longer even trusts himself. He is a major proponent for signing over their sovereignty for security, because he doesn't trust himself. He doesn't trust himself with his freedom anymore. The Iron Man 2 version of himself would look at this Civil War version and go, for shame! But that is where this path has led him. That stronghold of fear has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger to the point he no longer even trusts himself. There's something deeper than this political level, though, and it goes way down to this personal level. He still has a wound from the death of his parents. He never had the best relationship with his dad, and he never got that right before his dad died. Never said what he wanted to say. It's why Civil War, when we meet Tony Stark in Civil War, it opens with that hologram thing that he created, because it was supposed to be a therapeutic thing that even though he can't say these words to his dad, he could say these words to an image of his dad. I love you, Dad, and I know you did your best. Oh, how he wishes he could say that. And he's lost his mom. So, can you see how that would be a stronghold?
Threat is imminent, and I have to protect the one thing that I can't live without. That's you.
You could have saved us.
So now we have Captain Steve Rogers, and his stronghold is related to fear, but I don't think it's quite fear. I think his stronghold is distrust. When we first meet this kid in World War II, this guy is full of trust. He trusts the American government with his life. He trusted the government with this experiment to turn him into a super soldier. He trusted them completely. Then we dive into Winter Soldier, and he lives in the modern world and sees what he died for and sees what he gave his life for. People who don't respect their freedom. People who are now so filled with fear that they want to hand over their freedom for security. Very smart plot for Winter Soldier, and very smart to see a World War II vet be frozen for all this time and come back and see this world and go, this is what I died for? What has this world become? And so he has that. But then, here's the perfect picture of a stronghold right here. Hydra. Hydra realized, oh, okay, so if we go and fight them, they won't just give us their freedom. Like, we can't force them to surrender. So we'll have to get them to, of their own free will, give us their freedom. So Hydra starts small, inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Starts small, inside the government. Then Hydra gets bigger and bigger, its foothold getting stronger and stronger and stronger till it takes more ground, till we get to the tipping point of Winter Soldier, where Captain America has to save the world. Hydra feeding crises so that people will be afraid and want to hand over their freedom just so that they can feel safe. It's amazing how Hydra became that stronghold inside the system, inside S.H.I.E.L.D., inside the government to try to destroy the world. And so Captain America is now disillusioned. This government that he trusted so much missed this? They tolerated the growth of this, and it just got bigger and bigger? Are you serious? Now you have Civil War, and you get this line from him where he's like, hey, if we hand our sovereignty over to these men, they're men with agendas, and agendas change. Are you serious? So we're going to hand this over to their whim? We're not perfect, but our hands are still the safest place. And so he has this distrust that he didn't have in the beginning, but he has it right now. Now, he's also got something beyond just politics going on here. When his mom and dad died, all he had left was his best friend, Bucky.
I'm with you to the end of the line, pal.
So Steve is there for his brother, no matter what, and he will do what it takes to protect those that he loves. Zemo's got a stronghold in his life. His stronghold is vengeance, it's anger, it's bitterness. And so now all he's had to do is not go and fight the Avengers, but he has to get them to fight each other. But it's not about just the political fight, because that wasn't gonna last. Politics are just that. They're just politics. Compared to what's in the heart, they're weak, because Tony and Steve were against each other politically. But it didn't take very long for Tony Stark to figure out that Bucky was framed. Of course, Zemo also, revealed that Bucky was framed. Point is, as Tony Stark came together with Steve, they were able to put those things aside and work together for the common good once again, until Zemo showed the video of Bucky Barnes, representative of Captain America's heart, destroying Iron Man's parents, representative of his heart. The way that he tore the Avengers apart wasn't politics. That was just a means to an end to get them positioned where he wanted them. No, the thing that really tore them apart was heart against heart. The things they cared most about each other being pitted against each other. That became the very thing that would bring the Avengers down. So what's the solution to this? To me, Black Panther is the picture of that solution. I talked about this in my last theological analysis about this, but I can't get that out of my head, because he really is that picture. See, When we let strongholds get a hold of us, I mean, they could fill our imaginations with all kinds of really bad thoughts, with all kinds of really negative things that are incredibly self-destructive. When you look at 2 Corinthians 10:5, it tells us to take those thoughts captive, to take them captive to the truth. Black Panther is the picture of taking that stuff captive.
Vengeance has consumed you. It's consuming them. I'm done letting it consume me.
So this is what he comes to understand. Flesh and blood is not the enemy, but the powers and the principalities and the spiritual host of wickedness in the heavenly places, that is the enemy. So that vengeance, that unforgiveness, that bitterness, that was the enemy. Not Zemo, not Bucky, not flesh and blood. He made a choice. He forgave. That belief in that declaration, I don't think automatically it took away his pain. I'm pretty sure he still felt pain and sadness and anger. I'm pretty sure those feelings were still there, but he took those imaginations and he held them captive to the truth. Rather than them holding him captive, he took them captive and he made a different choice. He will not be consumed by vengeance. He will not make his choices out of anger, vengeance, and fear. No, he is making his choices out of truth. That was the decision he made, and as a result, Zemo was captured, and he was actually brought to justice. Now, I think Captain America has come to that because he sent Tony that letter, that olive branch. Tony received that letter and wasn't angry and didn't rip it up, and in fact, he and Spider-Man, we find, was making shields and stuff for Captain America. So we see that I think there is that forgiveness, even if they haven't met each other face to face yet and hashed it out. And I really hope one of them does not die before they get the chance to do that, because that would be nice and cathartic for all of us, wouldn't it? But the truth is, strongholds can have great power over our lives. And a lot of times they have the power that we give them. And then they take on a life of their own, and they can be hard to defeat. But we have to follow the example of Black Panther. We have to take those thoughts captive and decide that's not going to rule me. I'm going to rule it, period. How do we take it captive? We take it captive to the truth. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. When we feel like we are insignificant and we're nothing, we could look that God so loved us that he gave his one and only son, so we can know how much value we have to God. And that stronghold can begin to lose its power. As bitterness begins to rise up, we can hold it all captive to the truth that we are forgiven, and so we need to forgive others. And that poison is released from our lives. Those strongholds can crumble and fall the more we take it captive to the truth. So that's the message I get when I watch Civil War. What did you think of Civil War, and how excited are you for Infinity War? Let me know in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified the next time I drop a theological analysis, a movie review like my Infinity War review. Yes! I cannot wait for that movie! So hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, and you'll be notified when all of that drops. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.